Bright Tuty. Every student matters.
Hello dear students, welcome to another lecture. In this class, we are going to continue with the Unit 1 of Education, Class 12, Nagaland Board, which is Educational Psychology. Now, so far in the previous videos, I have covered what is education, what is the relevance of education, and how does one's behavior, experiences and opinions impact one's behavioral patterns. We also learned about psychology, we learned about the various branches of psychology and the implication of science in psychology. Now in this class, we are going to begin with the areas in which educational psychology proves to be useful for a child. Okay, we have learned that education psychology is that branch of psychology wherein everything is learned from the perspective of a learner, from the perspective of a student, from the perspective of a child, to ensure the child is getting a good environment to study, the best material, the best teaching aids, everything is taken care of so that their development can take place in a healthy manner. So in this class, we shall discuss about those fields in which educational psychology proves to be very useful and effective. And the first that we have is the importance of it in the child-centered education. We all understand who is a child, right? Nowadays, the emphasis of education has been shifted to a student-centric education system. That means whatever education, whatever planning is made, whatever materials are planned, curriculum, syllabus, everything that is being planned is all taken care of from the perspective of a child. Whether the child will be able to cope up with the given syllabus, whether the child is able to understand the teaching methodology that is adopted by the teacher, whether the child is getting the comfortable environment in which he or she is able to learn conducively. All these aspects are taken care of by educational psychology. We all know that development takes place at every stage. From birth till the time you become mature, you keep on developing. And educational psychology emphasizes on the fact that education, when delivered to the students at the right age, in the right manner, can do wonders for them. And therefore, educational psychology emphasizes on the importance of making education children-centered. That means everything has to be planned, keeping in mind the benefit of the child, so that a child can learn and grow and develop. The second thing that educational psychology talks about is the curriculum. Now, what is the curriculum? Curriculum means what all things will be a part of the child's education. This includes both academic as well as the co-curricular activities that a child is exposed to. Everything is a part of the curriculum. Now, according to educational psychology, every child has got a different aptitude, right? No two children are same. Every child has different interests, every child has a different aptitude, every child has a different rate of growth and understanding. And therefore, educational psychology initiated the fact that everything that is planned in the curriculum, both the syllabus, the academic syllabus or the co-curricular activities, should be planned in such a manner that every child's aspects can be taken care of. We have to consider the fact that in a class there can be low achievers, there can be average scorers, and there can be high scorers as well. So I cannot plan a syllabus or an activity keeping in mind only the high scorers. That is going to be unfair to the rest of them. Or keeping in mind the low scorers, because again that is going to be unjust for the high scorer as well as the average scorers. So the curriculum should be planned in such a manner that the interest and aptitude of all the children on average are taken care of. And that is the reason why the schemes of the basic education in India and United States, everything is made children centric rather than subject matter centered. That means it is not important what is to be taught. What matters is that the children are taught something that is easy for them to understand or not. Okay? We cannot teach a child of class 3 the functioning of brain, because that is going to be a very high level content beyond the understanding. So we have to decide what all curriculum has to be given to the children as per their age, their interests, their aptitudes, their growth, understanding levels. And this is what educational psychology takes care of. The next thing that educational psychology looks into is the timetable of the students. Now, obviously, whenever a school frames timetable, it keeps in mind that different subjects are given due importance. A child is not going to the school only for studying English or mathematics or social science or geography or history. So one has to keep in mind that the subject, the timetable of a child is made in such a manner that the child is able to enjoy and retrieve everything that has been taught to them in their brains. Because if we only keep on teaching and teaching and teaching the children, they are going to get exhausted. They are not going to enjoy what they are learning. And then whatever they learn is all going to be a waste for them. So one has to keep in mind that when framing a timetable for the students, you have to consider the factors such as the aptitude of the students, the interest of the students, the fact that a child should not get bored or, there should not be an element of monotony. We have to also consider the fact that a child is given an appropriate time to eat after short intervals or to use the convenience or drink water. And also the fact that every individual is different and therefore on a whole, holistically your timetable has to be. Next we have the co-curricular activities. As I told you, when we talk about curriculum, it is not only the academic syllabus that matters, but also the co-curricular activities play a very important role in the growth and development of a child. And educational psychology lays special emphasis on the fact that nowadays it is important that a child not only studies but also devotes equal amount of time in the co-curricular activities. Debates, group discussions, extemporaries, poetry recitation, story writing, expeditions, tours and games, mono act, mime, hosting, and so many things which give the child an exposure to everything that is important. Just the subject knowledge is not important unless and until you know how to execute that practically. So a child who's been told to learn the difference between, let's say, has been told to write the positives as well as the negatives of using a mobile phone, let's say for instance. The child is brilliant when it comes to writing. But the moment the same child is put onto the stage, the child has so much stage fear that he or she is not even able to speak one line without getting stuck. So here is where the co-curricular activities come into picture. So giving this exposure to the children so that they are able to learn and grow holistically. All-round development of the children is important, and this again is the focus of educational psychology. Next, which is very important, which we as educators, vouch for, and that is the discipline in the children. We all know that an indisciplined child can never learn and can never grow. Why? Because he or she does not know the importance of being in discipline. Now, being in discipline does not mean that the teacher has to be very strict, has to have a stick in hand and has to beat the child if the child speaks, or creates noise in the class, is shouting or anything for that. What discipline matters is, what it lays emphasis on is the fact that a teacher has to find the cause of any indiscipline which is caused by the child. The teacher has to discover the reason behind something which the child is doing which is not good for him or her. And then rather than using corporal punishments or threats and, any sort of physical abuse to the child, the teacher has to find a permanent cure to it. And that can be done only when the teacher maintains a rapport with the student, where the teacher is able to make the students confide in her and make sure that the teachers are talking to her and telling her about their worries so that a solution can be found and the child can be made disciplined. So this is how the psychologists look into the discipline aspect of the students. Next is a healthy environment. Now, obviously, every child deserves to study in a healthy environment. Rabindranath Tagore, once he described a school that he had seen, and he told about the black and the shabby, untidy walls. They had no ventilation. There was no cross ventilation, inside the rooms, and they were like cubicles where the kids were stuck. And that is when he realized that it is important for the students to learn in an environment which is good and healthy for them. They should have breathing space. They should have a kind of classroom which is colorful and bright enough so that they would want to come and learn. The school has to make efforts in making sure that the child is given all the due facilities in the school. A good playground, a good auditorium, the stage, the class, the audiovisual aids, anything which is required for the mental and the physical health of the child. This is the need of the hour and needs to be paid very, very high emphasis. The next thing that we all know is very important is the formation of opinion on the educational problems. Now, educational psychology, we all know, deals with the fact that a child should be given a conducive environment to study in. But it also provides you occasions, it also provides you opportunities to look into some matter, to analyze the problem and to form, to get solutions to it. And all through this while, there are a lot of problems that a teacher might come across, problems which are related to the society. There are so many problems that as teachers we've seen, there are people, kids who belong to the economically backward society, economically weaker section of the society, since they do not have the appropriate facilities at home. Therefore, their learning process is not that qualitative as compared to the other students. Then there are students who deal with some sort of a problem. There can be some special child, there can be a child who's hyperactive, there can be a child who's a slow learner. There can be a child who's very indisciplined. There can be a child who can never sit and has to bounce upon the desks. So all these problems are very common for a teacher to come across in her teaching career. But what educational psychologist empowers the teachers with is the motivation, the strength, and the understanding of the fact that if there is a problem, one has to find a solution to that. And therefore, one gets a chance under educational psychology to reflect over the different types of problems and to find all the possible solutions. Next, we have measurement and evaluation. This is very important. We all go to school. At the end of the year, we all are assessed and we all are evaluated. The efforts that we have made, the hard work that we have put into, everything is going to be assessed at the end, and the child is going to be analyzed on the basis of the progress that the child has made, right? Now, for educational psychology, it is important that the measurement, when we are assessing the child, when we are evaluating the child, we need to look into the different aspects of one's personality. The interest that the child has in the subject, the child's ability, the child's aptitude, the child's creative skills, thinking skills, logical reasoning. So rather than just, putting forth one broad category on which you are going to assess the child, there should be multiple small subdivisions which will make it very easy for the children to get a better score. Because no two children are same, we know that. A can be very good with mathematics, but B can be excellent with the English oratory skills. And C can be an amazing Hindi poet. So every child has different capabilities, every child has different abilities, and as an educator, it is very important for us to put forth a kind of assessment that will assess the children on the basis of their individuality, so that a fair, a just assessment can be made, and the children also are given a proper environment, are given the proper motivation to grow and to develop. The last that we have is that educational psychology acts as an aid, a tool in achieving the educational objectives. We have got so many psychologists, we've got so many, laureates, we've got so many wise men who've laid down some educational objectives. What things do we aim to get from education? If a child is being sent to school, for example, by a parent, they would obviously have some objective in their mind. They would want that if my child is, let's say, in grade 1, by the end of grade 1, I would want my child to be able to read a small sentence properly, to write the spellings of 3-letter words, let's say, to know the table of 2 and 3 in mathematics, to learn about what are living things and non-living things. So these, for examples, were a few objectives, right? So educational psychology is obviously aiming at the fact that whatever objectives have been decided by the education for the education of the education, they all should be achieved. Whatever aid is required, whatever help, whatever support is required should always be provided by the teachers or by the external factors. But at the end of it, the aim, the objective of being sent to school or the objective of learning something should be fulfilled. Not only in school, when a child is sent to a cricket academy, let's say, by the parent, The parent would want the child by the end of 1 year to know how to bat, bowl and field altogether. He or she cannot expect the child to qualify for the Ranji trophy or to play for the country, But the basics, the parent would obviously want the child to be able to fulfill. So, educational psychology is taking care of the fact that all these objectives are taken care of, are fulfilled, no matter what the aid has to be provided to them. Alright, dear students, so these were all the reasons and the ways in which educational psychology plays such an important role in the education of a child. Next again, as we all know now, what is psychology we have learned. We know what is education also. Let us study the relationship between education and psychology. Now we know that psychology is something that triggers your mind. It is going to deal with what goes inside you, your soul. And education is always provided to you through external factors. So what is the relationship between psychology and education? Now, psychology and education have the same aim, have the same objective. How? Psychology helps the educator, the teacher, to understand the child properly so that the child can be taught or can be dealt with in a similar manner. This is what psychology helps us. It helps us, it teaches us that different kids have different opinions, different aptitudes, different interests and ideas. And we as educators, we as teachers need to identify that and act accordingly. This is what psychology gives to an educator. On the other hand, education is obviously something that will take place. Education is going to flourish only when the psychology of the child is known. I can specify what am I going to teach to my students once I know the capability, the mindset and the aptitude of my children. So, psychology will help me to understand my students, and only after have I understood my students would I be able to teach them in the manner that is most appropriate. Now, next that we have is the psychology and the curriculum. Again, I have discussed with you the role of curriculum that we have. Curriculum talks not only about the academics, but the co-curricular activities also. Good curriculum is going to ensure that the personalities of the students are groomed in a constructive manner. Is going to ensure that a child gets everything according to his or her needs. And therefore, a curriculum should decide what is to be taught and how it is to be taught to the students so that it can be most effective. Curriculum is to be planned in such a manner that the needs of the students are very well taken care of. We have always to move from from easy to complex. This is how we have to move. I cannot start teaching my child about photosynthesis and then tell him or her what is a leaf. Right? It is always from simple to complex that we have to move. And obviously, it should be flexible for the learners. Flexible for the learners means that one child may have different capabilities as we have been advocating, right? So there should always be a possibility for a child to learn according to his or her interests. Okay? The curriculum should be planned in such a manner that there is a possibility of changing it according to the needs of the children. I have, let's say, planned my curriculum for the year 2021-22, right? The curriculum I planned was planned keeping in mind the current batch of students. In the year 2022, let's suppose that I get a new batch which is more energetic and enthusiastic about learning. I will have to put something more in my curriculum so that their energies can be used in a constructive way. So this flexibility in the curriculum is very much important. Next, psychology obviously has got a very big role to play in the methods of teaching. We nowadays, as we have been saying, we have to follow different methodologies of teaching. Earlier, it was only one way, the teacher speaking and the children listening. Nowadays, there have been multiple methods and approaches that have been introduced by psychology in order to ensure that the child is getting the best out of education. The project methods, the integrated approach, the experiential learning, the playway method, the child being the teacher, peer tutoring. These are all the things that are laid forth by psychology. The teacher has to ensure that the instructions that are given by her should be linked with the needs, with the problems and the development of the child. The teacher, as I gave you the example, that as per the new batch of students, I will have to change my teaching methodology as well. I cannot keep on moving in a linear way. I have to be in a spiral motion to do something new. Maybe the next batch is less energetic, so I'll take a back seat and will tease my way of teaching. The next batch is even more energetic. I will add 10 more things to my curriculum and my method of teaching. So this is what psychology teaches us. Then we have the evaluation. As we have already learned about it, evaluation of a child is very important because it is only the evaluation methods that will teach us, will tell us about how much the child has achieved during the year and what all improvement is still needed. So it is only the teacher who has a direct control over the evaluation, but the evaluation or the questions should be prepared in such a manner that different types of students, or rather all the types of students are taken into account. Weak, average, high scorers, prodigies, every type of student is taken into consideration and only then can we expect our evaluation to be fair. Next we have again psychology and discipline. As we have learned, psychology is going to tell us how to deal with the problems of the students. Children who may be backward in society, may be a special child, they may be gifted children, they may be physically handicapped, they may be totally at unrest all the time. So all these aspects talk about the dynamic nature of the children, the different shades of the children. Now it is on to the teacher how to control those students in the most effective manner. As we've already talked, controlling the children does not mean using an iron scale or a threat or a loud volume. It depends on how beautifully and how constructively you are able to channelize their energies in a positive direction. If a child is always running around here and there in the class, give him a task that is going to, make sure that the child gets to roam around. Maybe distribution of notebooks, collection of notebooks, and so on and so forth. So it is again on the teacher how to discipline the child in the most appropriate. Next we have psychology and the school administration. Now the school administration, we all understand, they are the ones who are responsible for building the entire scenario for education for the children. Providing the aids, providing supervision, providing syllabus, providing resources, providing desks, blackboards, white chalks, everything that is supplied in the school, in the class, is all because of the administration. So basically, psychology is going to help the administration to solve a problem that they might be dealing with, with respect to running the school, or the different possibilities, the different aspects, the different agencies that are connected with the school. So one may reach a solution to the problem that they might be dealing with only by, discussion. So a mutual discussion is something that should always be used as a tool to solve the most difficult problem that you might come across. The administration has to take again proper care of the individual needs of everyone they are discussing with. Same as we take care of the children, the administration is also accountable to do the same with us. Now, psychology and teachers. We all know that teaching is an art. We call teaching as the most noble profession because it is only a teacher who is, producing the future Einsteins or the future Marie Curies of the world, of this entire, on this earth, who will probably end up doing something totally remarkable and brilliant and good. So how does psychology help a teacher to give the best and to get the best from the student as well? It is going to enhance the vision of the teacher. Psychology understands that a teacher will be able to deliver her or his best only when she or he knows what is there in the child. So, psychology empowers the teacher with a better understanding of the children so that she is able to teach them well. It helps a teacher to, evaluate the child in the most appropriate manner. As I told you, every child has different capabilities. One may be a good orator, one may be a good poet, one may be a good writer, and so on and so forth. Now, it is only because of psychology that a teacher is able to understand the weaknesses of the students and find a solution to those problems. It is going to change the attitude of the teacher towards her students and also introduces all the tests that need not be written, that need not be pen paper tests, but just the simple ways in which a teacher can judge the child. Maybe a word game can be played by the teacher. Maybe, a sentence framing game can be played by a teacher in the class. A dodging game can be played by a teacher in the class. So these are just the different ways in which the child can be assessed. Again, psychology provides new theories to the teacher so that they can understand better and can provide better education. They can modify their classroom. The entire structure of the classroom can be changed only when the teacher understands the children well. The teacher is able to teach the child how to behave and in what situation. The teacher is the one who can always bring to rest the negatives of a child and can change them to positive. So such is the heavy responsibility which is bestowed on the teacher. Next, we have psychology and timetable textbook preparation, as we have talked about it. On the basis of the psychological principles, the people who frame the curriculum, the people who frame the syllabus, the timetable, all of them are going to consider the interests, the ability, the suitability and the condition of the learners. Rather than preparing something from their own perspective, they will keep in mind that that is for the children's betterment and their betterment should be their final goal. So that is the reason why these days the notebooks have become so bright and attractive and colorful so that the children want to open them. And next we have psychology and innovation. Innovation, we all know, coming out with new techniques of teaching. As I told you, nowadays notebook teaching, the textbook teaching is actually something which is a thing of past. Children have to be taught in new ways. activity-based, project-based, interactive activities. There should be some audio-visual aids that can be taken care of in order to impart education. So all these innovations, all these new techniques need to be brought in so that the best education can be given to the children and the children also end up learning the best from it. Again, as I have already hinted you about the audio-visual aids, we all know that children are very interested in something that is taught to them through the audio-visual aids. Why? Because it makes learning easy, interesting, effective, fun, and they don't realize that they are learning, right? So psychology and education, they are very closely linked with each other, and therefore every teacher needs to know, needs to understand the psychology of the child before. Then we have psychology, guidance and counseling, as we have already again discussed about it. In education, there are many problems. The students in itself are different types, coming from different cultures, coming from different backgrounds, coming from different societies, having different emotional setup. And all these children have to be guided and have to be taken care of in independent, individual manner. There cannot be a common way to deal with this, with all these types of children together. So psychologists, they actually provide guidance so that every child can be guided, can be understood and can be made to develop in the most appropriate. So these, my dear students, were how psychology and education are related to one another. Now comes the difference. We've learned what is the similarity, how are they related to each other, when do we need psychology in education, we know that. But what is the difference between education and psychology is also very important. Now we know that psychology is just an act, it is just a medium of education. It is not education on a whole. It is just one of the ways in which education and good education can be supplied to the students. Education is a very large term. It is a very, needs to be taken, looked at from a very larger perspective. Psychology is something that only makes the education process easier, helps one to ensure that the education which is given or taken can be well utilized, is efficient, and the learners are getting the maximum out of it. So psychology is not education, it is only one of the tools that make education. So, what is the difference between psychology and education? Their methodology. We know that we keep on learning at every age that we pass from. However, there are so many developments that have been made, there have been so many methodologies that have been introduced that make learning easy. We all learn. What we know, our parents have also learned the same thing in school. Our kids are also going to learn the same thing in school as well, right? What is the difference? The difference is in the teaching methodology. The teaching methodology that was imparted for our parents was different. For us, it was still a step ahead. It was better. And currently for the children, it is so, active and fun and, playway in nature that the children take special interest in it. Therefore, this variation in education is very much important if we want the children to develop. And therefore, one needs these psychologists. Psychologists make or empower the teachers to become ready for the challenges that they might come across. They also tell or teach the children, the teachers, that in case of a problem, what are the solutions and how the solutions need to be brought. So, the method of which education is delivered to the children depends on the psychology. Whereas psychology is not dependent on anything at all. You understand? Education is dependent on psychology. Why? Because only when we understand the mindset of a child would we be able to teach that child in the most appropriate manner. However, we do not need, psychology. We do not want, or we do not have anything on which psychology is dependent on. Psychology is just a stream. It is just a subject which is learned. One learns it, and there are so many ways in which psychology can be applied. Education is just one part of it. Psychology can be applied in so many different scenarios and different aspects. Next difference that we have between the education and the psychology that we have is obviously, as I have already told you, that educational psychology is always aims at ensuring the different understanding levels of the students, so that on the basis of the understanding level of the students, the lesson plans, the learning, the teaching methodologies, the course, the syllabus, the curriculum, the subject, everything can depend. However, there is a lot of difference between psychology and educational psychology, as I told you. Educational psychology is just a part of psychology. As we know, there are different branches of psychology, and educational psychology is just one branch of psychology. Psychology is a very wide term, and educational psychology is just one small aspect of that. So as we have learnt by now, this is also going to be a sort of a recapitulation for us, that psychology is that field of study which is very comprehensive, which is very whole in nature, and it studies the mental processes, the behavioral patterns of the human beings. And educational psychology is that branch of psychology which studies the learning process of the human beings. Again, educational psychology is a specialized subject. We know when we talk about educational psychology that the psychologists only aim at the educational aspect of the child, right? Whereas psychology again is something which is good. So with this, my dear students, we come to the end of Unit 1. I hope the chapter was clear to you. I am going to pause here now and will discuss the back exercises of this chapter in my next video. So I shall see you all now in my next lecture.